Our daughter needed an accessory for her backpack to hold her water bottle. Her backpack was purchased at a duty-free store in France, so it's French or European or whatever, and we had to order this accessory from another country. And it was $25 for the accessory itself and $10 for shipping. So, almost a 50% increase in the price just because we had to ship it over here.
Right.
So yesterday, Jess gets a notice from UPS saying that we owe $43.47. And
Like
it's
a text?
It's a text. It's a click here to pay your balance type thing. Right. And so she texts me and she said, "Is this a scam?" And I said, "That, I don't know, looks like a scam." And I'm like, "Hey, ChatGPT, is this a scam?" And ChatGPT's like, "Oh, that really seems like a scam." Like, it says,
I wouldn't click that.
that email doesn't seem very trustworthy. You could click that and bring, a virus on your phone, and then anything that says click here, you probably should never click there. Right. And I'm like, Jess, I think it might be a scam. And I share that with her. And she's like, "I don't know. I think it might be real." And sure enough, an hour later, the UPS guy arrives and he says, "I'm so sorry. It says here that you owe $43.47. And we can't receive this package from the man standing in front of her without writing a check because they can't take credit card. Not going to hand them cash. And I guess you should go back to her app and do it on the app. But the guy's standing right in front of her. So Jess has to go get a checkbook and write a check to receive delivery. And the reason, tariffs.
I've heard this.
So wait a second. But the tariffs are only 15% or whatever. But
Apparently
this is
not in France.
But
they're always changing. So I don't know. What have you heard about this?
I've seen this on TikTok, honestly. People are buying things from wherever.
Europe.
Dresses and but all over. It's not even just Europe. And they'll get delivered to their door and they'll have an additional cost. And some people are like, it's the cost that the delivery man is telling me is more than what I spent on the product.
This was 100% that case.
Yeah.
It was almost twice the cost of the product. Plus, we'd already paid for shipping.
I would have never bought in that if I knew. It's not included, and it was tariffs.
Yeah.
Can you just deny the package?
No, they don't give it to you. Yeah.
Well, yes, you could deny the package.
But then you lose what you already paid for it.
Right. Yeah,
People
that's
were
true.
buying,
It's a sunk cost.
Wedding dresses and stuff. And they'd get to their door and be like, "I could have literally bought in a designer brand wedding dress for the price of what I paid for this."
Wait. Oh, because it's a percentage, right? So a wedding dress is obviously a very expensive thing.
So it's already a $300 dress or $400 dress, and then it's coming and it's $300 extra for the dress.
Wedding dresses are definitely more than $400.
Well, I'm attending a wedding dress,
not like the actual
not a wedding
bride's dress.
Gown.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy because we ordered our windows from Germany, and the tariff was just a separate line item that we just paid.
The thing is, the tariff is always changing.
Right.
Right.
Maybe
But I'm confused, Colin, because I was told the tariffs were a tax on the country that was sending things, not on me.
Well,
Was
I don't.
lied to?
I don't.
Why did I have to pay $43?
This is what I don't get. How is the shipping 4 times more?
Because it's the cost of it coming into the country. Right?
But I want to know how did they calculate that price?
I actually think worrying about the percentage or the calculation is absolutely not the point. I should not be getting something at my door and then being forced to write, or my wife being forced to write a check to receive it. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, it's crazy.
So anybody who suggests that tariffs are not going to financially impact you is an absolute moron.
Yes.
And just hasn't had this experience yet. But I mean, we knew this already coming in.
Right, of course.
Right. But it just, honestly, it's comical how bad it is. And now this thing is literally the cost of a backpack.
It's so crazy, too, that it will come to your doorstep and you can't get it until you pay the price.
I had no idea this was a thing. So basically,
Yeah.
just don't order from Europe.
Well,
It's anywhere with tariffs. So, I think there was one with Australia. There might be some, too. There's all over. Wherever
That's nuts.
they're in.
I think, yes, you don't order
changes.
internationally anymore. That's for sure.
Right.
But also, yeah. Come come on.
That's great. Like, I don't understand how that's UPS's solution.
Well, and then to get, like, she didn't have to write a check. She got the text and she could have clicked here to pay. But, like, if that's not a scam yet, it will be soon.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is so... And then the UPS guy would just drop it off and not talk to you. And
These poor
That's
UPS
mind-blowing.
people also having to deal with it. I bet so. Everyone's so angry.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Like, that's not part of their job.
I'm very curious to look into, like, how is that? That doesn't make sense.
Colin will fact check.
I believe you.
my
Like,
reality.
I believe you, but that just is so mind blowing to me that, like, it's not tacked on to the price of the good, and that 2, it is a separate line item expense that's 400% more.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make
Well, I mean,
sense.
It wasn't 400% more.
In the shipping.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an import, essentially, at that point.
Yeah.
Right? So it's on the person importing to pay the tariff.
Right.
Well, and the retailer doesn't need to actually disclose it because the retailer has not. They're charging shipping for what they're paying.
I don't have anything to do with this,
Yeah.
actually.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I just wonder who sets the price on that.
I think I know who sets the price.
Yeah, I don't know. That blows my mind that it's...
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the thing.
All right. Well, it is.
So don't order from Europe.
Yes. Don't order from Europe. Welcome to the Compound Growth Podcast with Colin and Wheeler, where we talk all things growth. From financial growth to career growth, personal development to societal progress, we explore how each layer builds on the next, compounding over time to shape who we become. Each week, we break down complex ideas and emerging trends into clear, actionable insights. Because growth isn't just about numbers, it's about understanding the world and our place in it. The information in this material is for general information only, and is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Investment advice offered through Integrated Partners, doing business as Ko-Fi Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor. Integrated Partners does not provide legal, tax, mortgage, advice, or services. Please consult your legal tax advisor regarding your specific situation. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. The economic forecasts set forth in this material may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that the strategies promoted will be successful. Today, we're talking about running out of money in retirement.
Yes, we are. We are talking about running out of money in retirement. And this came up because we have several clients that were concerned with the fact that they will probably run out of money in retirement.
And I think what's interesting about that concern is that it can take a lot of different shapes and forms.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like, yesterday I had a meeting with clients who are concerned about just like the world, and, one of them just retired. So it's a husband and wife, and the husband just retired, and he happened to be a government employee, so he's actually getting paid for a little while. He was one of those voluntary retirees. But, they're worried about just their savings being blown up.
Yeah.
So they're worried from external sources. And then there's maybe other sources like an advisor saying, hey, if you don't change your lifestyle, you might have to do something here.
Yeah. I for the particular clients that I'm referring to in the particular cases that we've discussed, when the client retired, their projections looked really good. Then they had some really crazy lifestyle changes that, have dramatically impacted their retirement. And now their spending has increased and their projections have gone down. And to the point where I think they'll probably be out of money in the next 10 to 15 years.
And I think that's honestly like the worst case scenario. If look, no one, death is always the worst case scenario.
Sure.
Right. But so let's set the table a little bit.
Yep.
When we work with clients and we talk about not having money when you need it, it means one thing when you're in the accumulator phase, when you're working and building up your savings, and it's a totally different thing in the distribution phase.
Yep.
I had a couple of survey data highlights. I just wanted to run through some numbers real quick.
Shoot them off.
2025 Allianz study found that 64% of retiree responders fear running out of money more than death. Literally more than death.
So there is something worse than death to most
it's
people.
running out of money compared to for those people. A retirement living survey found that 58% of seniors so 60 and older, worry about depletion of assets. So that's kind of both of the things we were just talking about there. A survey of financial planners found that 47% said that their clients' biggest fear was running out of money, and 22% say it's the second biggest fear. So the vast majority of the clients that worked with financial planners, according to this 2025 study, it was either their number one or number two concern.
My guess is that their other number one or number two concern would be a long-term care event.
Yeah.
If I had to take a stab in the dark.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that the estimated cost for a medical cost for a single retiree is $172,500 over your lifetime, according to Fidelity. So that's a single retiree age 65.
Yep.
Right. For a couple, it's $330,000. So a couple at both age 65, again, according to Fidelity.
Yep.
And then obviously we'll talk about some of the big costs that can impact that. But the last survey that I thought was really interesting was a Gallup survey. And it kind of speaks to the different generations and their concerns about running out of money. And it might seem exactly like you expect, where you would expect that the boomers, the people who are either nearing retirement or entering retirement, they would be the ones that are most worried about running out of money. It's actually not that. The generation that is most concerned at a 70% response rate is Gen X. And 66% of millennials.
Really?
Yeah. So I found that pretty shocking. I am somewhere in between both of those things, but
isn't Gen X millennials?
No.
Are you Gen X?
So I am in a happy little sub-generation here where we are
the gray zone.
We're not quite Gen X, and we're not millennials.
Interesting. Okay.
How does any of this work?
So, okay, the reason that happened is because I was born in 1981.
Yeah.
And that was before what?
It says millennials,
I know
born
it says
1981.
Not, look, I care very little about this. Jess will passionately debate you on this. But the point is that we are in this little space where we existed through our childhood without cell phones, without computers, right? We got cell phones as like teenagers in college, but we didn't have cell phones before them. We didn't really have the internet. So there's this small pocket where we don't really identify with Gen X, but we don't have the reality of, or shared reality with the rest of the millennial generation. So it's kind of like a weird little pocket generation.
Interesting.
I don't know. Generations, by the way, I think it's all a bunch of BS.
Well, yeah, I mean, someone just like made them up.
Yeah,
It's
and
fine.
also as people get older, people change, and anyway.
Okay,
So
sorry.
so
That's what I'm
millennials and Gen X fear losing money or running out of money more so than baby boomers.
Yeah.
Even though baby boomers are the retirees right now.
And they're the ones that have like no more time to make money.
Right. It's done.
Yeah.
Did you know, this is another interesting fact I thought as well, BlackRock did a study on this. After 20 years of retirement, the average retiree still has over 80% of their retirement savings set aside. So over a course of an entire retirement from 65 to essentially death, because the average life expectancy for a man is 17 and a half years from your retirement date. And then for a woman, it's 20 years. So basically at the time of death, you still have over 80% of the assets that you have set aside.
Right. Because of that fear of running out of money.
Because people fear running out of money, they underspend. But what we're talking about today is really overspending and how much of an issue that can become.
Yeah.
And for me, the clients in question, I'll say, I actually was thinking about this on the way in. Have you ever heard of the show Secret Eaters?
No.
Is this on YouTube?
No. I don't know what show. This is actually a European show.
Uh-oh. Is there a tariff for watching?
There is not a tariff for watching it because it's on YouTube.
You said it wasn't on YouTube.
Anyway, so there's a show, Secret Eaters, which follows these people around who are obese. And these people are like, I don't understand how I'm gaining weight. I'm eating salads. You know, I never eat any sort of like added sugar or carbs or anything like that. And they're convinced that they're eating very healthy. The show follows them around, puts hidden cameras everywhere. There was this one guy who was like, I eat Special K for breakfast every morning. I'm super healthy, but he's like 350 pounds. He was putting double whipping cream instead of milk in his Special K, which added 1,700 calories.
What is double whipping cream?
Think whipping cream times 2 in terms of calorie count. And he was having multiple bowls of this in the morning. So 1,700 added calories in the morning, okay? And all these other people that they follow who are healthy are grabbing candy bars and doing a bunch of added carbs. This one woman was having salads, but she was putting 3 cups of mayonnaise on her salad.
Okay.
Which was an additional 900 calories to her salad every day. And she was gaining weight like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
My point with this is what I have found in the cases where clients get to a point where their retirement projections are poor is because there's a lack of understanding with where their money goes. And there's a lack of understanding with spending. And people say, they come in and they always say, oh, well, I spend $5,000 a month or $7,000 a month or whatever the number is. It's never that number.
Yeah.
You know, there are some people who are very organized where they track their spending, they have their budgets, it's this and that. But to me, there's always one thing that always causes someone to run out of money, and it's a lack of understanding of their expenses, lack of understanding of inflation, and a lack of understanding of future expenses that could come up that are unbudgeted.
I think it's almost like a lack of connection with reality.
Totally.
And that's really tricky when you're in our seat to, like, you don't want to reality check people. Like, it's not fun.
Yeah, no, it's not fun, because sometimes you have these conversations with people and you're like, look, we budgeted you spending $6,000 a month in retirement. You know, you have your Social Security, then you have your assets, which can do this for you. But for the last 6 months, you've spent 12.
Yeah.
You know, and that can't continue. And that's never a fun conversation to have. And it's rare that people change their lifestyle to go the other direction. Most people have lifestyle creep where they increase their lifestyle. But it's very difficult once you're used to a lifestyle to pull away from it.
I think that's why you have to, when I'm planning with clients, like, we use their current lifestyle to project their future lifestyle, right? And
you
then
have to.
We add a little bit of a buffer on that. And then we always assume inflation. And I once had a client who, she came in with her husband, and they both had pensions.
Yep.
And they both had Social Security. And they also both had credit card debt.
Okay.
And very little in non-qualified assets and very little in retirement assets, because a lot of their savings went to fund their pensions. And pensions are great at providing, reliable incomes. They both had state or local pensions, but they had regular cash flow. And that was great, except they had this credit card debt and they had no plan to pay it off. And they loved to travel. And, I said, and they retired maybe on the early side, just a little bit. And I said, it might help if you look for a little bit of part-time work, 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. Any little bit will help. We can find a solution in the meantime. Like, this is not a crisis, but it would help. She cried in the meeting because she had just achieved this milestone of retirement, and she'd worked really, really hard, and she didn't want to work anymore.
Yeah.
And I was telling her that it would help her financial situation if she did. And that was eye-opening for me, because we've talked about how when you achieve a goal, that can be a really depleting thing. It's supposed to be empowering, but it's kind of sad at the end.
It's the close of a chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you achieve a goal and then are told, well, you didn't really achieve it, then that's a really hard thing to accept. And it's a sad, what I told her was the truth. And what I told her was, if she had followed up on that advice, she'd be in a better financial situation right now. But it was maybe insensitive to where she was in her life. And however I delivered that to her, it didn't result in her actually going out and doing that. So I felt like I didn't achieve that part of my job, even though my job is really, in that case, to just provide the information. at some point it feels like it's out of your hands.
It does. Well, that's where it gets a little tricky, is when your advice becomes emotional. And it's really difficult to remove emotions from money, because people have worked their whole lives to accumulate this level of wealth. They've worked their whole lives in hopes that they're going to retire one day to spend more time with grandkids or travel or whatever it is. And then when you tell them, hey, you got to put a pause or push back retirement or maybe work a little bit more, that's a huge game changer for a lot of people mentally to come to that point.
Yeah.
Which is a little sad.
Yeah. So that's something that you've been kind of navigating.
It is. Yeah, I have been. And it's an unfortunate situation. But as I look through this and The Secret Eaters show, as Kaylee's been watching, it is apparent to me that maybe what we need is better ways to track money, track spending, and be extremely real with yourself, like what you were saying. Because most of the time when people retire, we actually see their spending go up.
See, I've actually seen the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen spending go down, or go down in a lot of areas and then up in one very specific area.
Correct. So for me, when someone retires, let's just say they're used to spending $10,000 a month, just easy math. And maybe they travel 2 or 3 times a year. Often they're traveling much more in the beginning. So the go-go days, as they've been coined. But with that being said, for me, what I've seen is a curve where you retire, it's a little bit, and then it goes down once you've kind of gotten a lot of the travel done, and then you get into your teen, grandkids come, whatever it is, you spend more time with them. Then healthcare kicks in at the end, and then it gets really expensive towards the later half of the years. So I guess my point is with this is knowing what your goals are and what you actually want your retirement to look like. We talked about the architect thing before in the past, where you get the journal and you plan out, what do you want your house to look like? What do you want that experience to be when you wake up in the morning? It's the same thing in retirement. If you want to travel, if you want to do more things, if you want to enjoy hobbies more than you have been before, be really realistic about what you would like that to look like and how much you want to spend, because you don't want to get to retirement and then have regrets about not being able to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you want to try to avoid those regrets along the way too, right? When we sat down for our Meet Tori episode, she talked about, I think, the benefit of enjoying money while you have it, right now, while you're young, and not waiting to the future. And that's something that we've talked about a lot. I was listening to an not older, but I think it was this year, episode of Armchair Expert, right? Did I say it right there?
Yep.
Okay. And Seth Rogen was on.
Okay.
And they were having a great conversation about money and how to think about money. And Seth was explaining that his biggest fear is actually like dying with too much money, right? Like, well, I could have done this, I could have done that.
Right.
And, Seth is welcome to come on our show and speak for himself. But I thought that was a really interesting conversation, because I'm sure Seth is doing okay. I think that he has enough money. He and his wife, they don't have kids. And, they've both earned an income in that industry, and they're both very busy people. So I'm sure that they're not going to run out of money. So then their concern maybe is coming from an abundance mindset, and like, what else could we do with the situation? And I think the abundance scarcity balance is really difficult.
It is. There's abundance, scarcity, and then realism in the middle. Like it's reality in the middle is, I'd say, where some people need to be. And I think that's fantastic that Seth has that mentality. And we have some of our clients too that want to die on E. And I think that's incredible. But there is specific math to this where it is what it is. And there's no arguing with the math. And you can give some projections and be like, paint the picture. But to have those conversations can be tough, but it can also be liberating to accept the fact that, okay, well, I can get exactly what I want if I make these changes. And there are some specific changes that you can make to help prolong your money and to bomb-proof your retirement stuff.
Yeah. I think what's tough is when we do, like, you're right, the math doesn't lie. But it is based on inputs, and those inputs can change. The spending amounts can change, the rate of return, the inflation, all these things can change.
Yeah.
what I think is tough is when you run through a few different scenarios with somebody and you say you're gonna be okay. You could probably spend more money. You could gift. You can, gift to charity, gift to your family, whatever. And they're like, I don't believe it. And I'm like, well,
That's
it's right
true.
here. And they're like, I don't. That's software. I don't trust that. And it's you can't convince people that it's like the bring a horse to water and you can't make them drink situation, right? If they've convinced themselves that they could run out of money, then you can't convince them otherwise.
I had this conversation with a client, I think it was last year, and it was a very impactful conversation because it was such an obvious thing, but it just like hit me like a ton of bricks. So this client doing everything right, saving for retirement. They were both engineers and they had accumulated some really good retirement savings, couple $1 million. And what they noticed was for the first like 25 years of their savings, it was going up very, very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Then over the last 4 to 5 years, because their assets had grown, compound interest really kicked in. So it went from, and this isn't the exact math, but it basically went from, like 1.8 to 2.4 to 2.9 to 3 to 4. And then it just like kept going quicker and quicker. And the client told me, he said, I knew math was a thing and I knew compound growth was a thing, but it never hit me how much it impacted me until I had more.
Yeah.
Because compounding growth on $100,000 feels a lot different than compound growth on 2 million, but it's the same number.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where it certainly becomes tricky too on the other side, right? Because when you start, you don't have a lot of money.
No.
Right? Like 2008 had no impact on me. I had no money.
Zero.
So
I was in college. Yeah.
And, we have some younger clients that went through 2020 and they stomached it really well because they were 5 years younger than they are now. But then when we get going back to the tariffs, when we got this little tariff tantrum at the beginning of the year here, those same clients that navigated COVID just fine, we're getting a little bit more hesitant, a little bit more cautious here. And it's because that headline number that they built up in their portfolio, especially on the back of 5 good years,
right,
is much larger. And now when they go down 1% or 5% or 10%, it's a much bigger number and it's hard to stomach that.
Totally. Yeah. If you've got $10,000 in the stock market and you lose 10 or 20%, that's not a game changer for most people. Hopefully not. But when you lose 20% of 3 million, you notice.
Yeah.
You definitely notice that. So you're right. It does go both ways. And to me, that was kind of an eye-opening conversation. But what I do want to continue to talk about is bond-proofing the portfolio.
Yeah.
So some interesting things that I wanted to kind of reference when it came to retirement planning that not everybody kind of considers. And we talked about the 4% rule before. But there are some ways, I'll say, that you can help insulate and bomb-proof your portfolio.
Okay.
That we have
Give us the
discussed
secret
before.
sauce, Colin.
Okay. Something that actually is a conversation that we have with basically everybody when they retire, Social Security.
Yep.
Some people think that taking Social Security early protects them from Social Security running out.
And let's talk about that, actually, because I think this is one opportunity. Now that we have Tori sitting here with us.
Yes.
Tori gets to be the voice of the everyman or every woman.
Yeah.
In this case.
Thank you.
So, Tori.
Yes.
How do you think about Social Security?
And have you ever thought about Social Security?
No, I don't think about it. It comes out of my check and I don't think about it ever.
So I think that's what most people start out with. They don't think about Social Security.
Not at all.
Right? That used to be, anyways, the case. But then something's flipped. And I had clients that were in their 30s, not much older than Tori, starting to think about Social Security running out. Right? Yeah. And this concept that it's not going to be there, and they're paying into the system that's not going to pay for them. So is that ever something that you think about?
Yeah, I do. I feel like, I don't know, that's definitely an idea that has floated around, I feel like, for a while of this isn't going to be an asset for us. It's going to be something that's taken away. And then there's like that stressor around it where people talk about it as something that we're paying for the older generation's retirement, but we won't receive that retirement.
Yeah. So it's almost like a gift to people, and it's unfair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know what's going to happen with it. I feel like I wouldn't dive too deep into it at this point of my life, but I also don't think I would expect that to come my way.
So that
like it feels like taxes.
Yeah.
That's what it feels
It
like.
is.
It feels like
basically.
a tax. It's like a whatever. That's going away, and I won't see that again.
So I think that's one school of thought. It's you plan for retirement expecting no Social Security, right? The other school of thought is that if you ever the government or the politician, decided to get rid of Social Security, they would not be a very popular politician.
Correct.
Government.
I think if there was a politician that eliminated Social Security or didn't find a way to continue to fund it, 60%, actually more than 60% of retirees rely on Social Security solely to make up their retirement. So basically what you're doing is kicking 60% of the retirement population, which is the majority of the population right now, actually.
The majority of the population is retired?
Sorry, 60% of the retirement population
the
is
majority of the
reliant on
retirement.
correct.
Yeah, okay.
Majority of the retirement population. So you basically be kicking them into poverty or back to work,
which a lot of them can't do.
Right, which is unfeasible.
Yeah.
So I think the odds of it going away are very, very slim, personally.
I think it would have to be a masterful display of convincing people that this is medicine that they need to take. And I don't know how anybody
You
would
better
accept
have
that
some
medicine.
other solution that's as good or better
Yeah.
that you can lobby behind, because it's just not going to fly.
Yeah.
How does it even work? Like I put in a percentage of my paycheck
a
until I
great question.
retire, and then what do I get?
Do you know what?
Like, do I even get the return I put into it? What number?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it
so what, the way that Social Security works, do you know what an annuity?
We talked about this the other day,
Okay.
but like
so
no.
an annuity is you put money in and then it guarantees you a certain amount every day to the day that you die once you turn it on.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's like you give me money and I give you income.
Okay.
That's the agreement.
Yes, that's the agreement. Social Security is the same way, but it's with the government. So basically, you contribute to taxes, or you contribute through Social Security. It comes out of your paycheck and whatnot. Then it goes to Social Security, and depending on how much you put in, up to a certain amount, I think $176,000 is what you can is what you're taxed on, and anything above $176,000 of income, I'm pretty sure that's the number. Is that right?
It's
Close
the specific of that is arbitrary, I think.
Okay. There's a certain amount of income that you're taxed up until. So if you made $500,000, the Social Security tax is only taken out on the first 176. So anything above and beyond that isn't subject to Social Security tax. You put money in there, and then when you go to retire, you can choose to take your Social Security benefit at basically any time between 62 and 70. The sooner you take it, the less money you get. The more you delay, the more money you get.
On a monthly basis.
On a monthly basis.
Mm.
So
you don't know what you're going to get until you...
There are calculations that you can
okay.
run for it. Yeah, and you can go on the SSA.gov website to figure out what your benefit is.
Back in my day, we used to get...
Should go to the
Statements.
office.
We get statements mailed to us.
Yep.
And it would say, here's
your benefit.
what you're projected to have for your benefit. And it's based on your income, right? So as you make more, your benefit is going to be more.
Because you're paying more into it.
Yeah.
So are people getting back what they put into it?
So far,
Yeah.
as long as they don't die.
Right. Now, you would have more money if you were to take that money and invest it in the stock market. Historically speaking, the rate of return is higher, but you do get money out
But
of it.
you don't have that option.
It is not.
Yeah.
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 So
yeah.
This is a government requirement for you to participate in it up to a certain income level. And then on the other side of that, you are still able to receive Social Security if you make $1 million a year in retirement, but you're going to be capped on how much Social Security you can receive. So there have been some people that argue that the amount of social, like at a certain income level, you should get no Social Security, right? Because theoretically, you don't need it, even though you then paid into that system, and it would be completely, for the benefit of others. It's altruistic, essentially, at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying one way or the other on what's best and what's right there, but the concept is that it's a pooled savings that everybody puts money into, and then they get to take it out when they die, or if something happens to me, my daughter will get a Social Security benefit, up until age 18. Like, there's other ways that you can access.
And same with Jess too. If your benefit's higher,
right.
then she can take yours.
Right.
Yeah. So when it comes to Social Security and your withdrawals, like I said, you can choose to take it anytime between 62 and 70. The most common ages that people kind of take it are 62, full retirement age, which is, I think, 67 and 7 months right now, technically, or they delay to 70. And the delta is huge. And getting back to the retirement projection, so if you delay your Social Security to 70, you get 76% more benefit than if you were to take it at 62, assuming you live for your expected lifetime. So 17 and a half as a man, additional years past 65, or 20 years, so to age 85 as a woman. So you get a significant amount more benefit, but a lot of people will take it sooner because they're fearful that the government will run out of money for Social Security or the program goes away and whatnot. But that is if we run that through our financial planning modeling scenarios, and I'm sure you've seen this before too, the moment you switch the age from 67 or 70 to 62, retirement projection crashes.
Well, that's because we project their life out to the 90s, right?
Yep.
And the break-even rate for when you take Social Security, like if you take it for 7 years earlier, then you have basically a 7-year head start, right? But you can catch up quickly by waiting to get a large amount on a monthly basis. So at some point around like 81, 82, or it depends on your situation, you break even. And it doesn't matter whether you took it at 62 or 70. But anything beyond that point, you were better off waiting. So it often becomes a conversation of how long do you expect to live and how long are you going to need money for, et cetera. And this is where all this fear of running out of money comes from.
Yep. Does that answer your Social Security question?
Yeah.
Now you know.
Now I know. Now I know I can depend on something else.
Yeah. So
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So that was one retirement thing that makes a huge impact on it.
Yeah.
The other thing is we talked about this 401ks.
Mm-hmm.
People put all their money into 401ks pre-tax, but they don't factor in that all of that they're going to have to pay tax on the way out.
Yeah.
People overfunding 401ks without putting money into either Roth or non-retirement assets has a dramatic impact on their retirement as well. Because if everything is in pre-tax, and let's just say you need to buy a new car. Hot topic for Tori.
Again.
Tori always needs to buy
This is again.
Correct. Yeah. But if you needed to buy a new car, and if all your money's in 401k and IRA assets, you need to take a withdrawal from that, you need to take out an additional 20% for what you would actually need for the car to pay for the taxes, plus state tax on top of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is another thing that pops out.
Yeah, if you have $1 million in a Roth IRA, you're going to get more from that in retirement than if you have $1 million in a traditional 401k
100%.
or a traditional IRA.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So these are factors that impact why you may run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address the psychological aspect of this? Of, well, I don't care. I just want to spend and live my life and die with nothing. Because honestly, like, have you ever run out of gas on the highway or anywhere?
I've gotten close.
Tori?
No.
No?
I'm petrified of that.
I've never run out either, right? So I'm always, my mom instilled in us, like, never go below half a tank.
Half a
tank. And it's like, especially in the winter, and then it might be even 3/4. Like, she's always going to the gas station. And so I grew up doing that now. And now I don't. Now, especially with an EV, I'm like, well, I know my range is. I can see how long I have, and I can make educated choices. Again, when I first had a car, you had no idea what the range was or how long you were going to be able to go. And I don't know if your car, Tori, is new enough that it tells you like when you're going to run out of gas.
I have like an average mile. It tells me average miles per gallon.
Yeah.
And then so I
But
don't
not, like,
know how to
range
tell when I
remaining.
only have 1 gallon left.
Yeah.
Like,
But,
it's not
does
just
it tell
one.
you have like 30 miles left of range? My Lexus used to do that.
Yes, actually it does, but it doesn't seem too accurate.
So that's the thing, right? So this is like if we put a financial plan together and we say you have a range of 30 years right now, right?
Yep.
And you say, well, I don't know if that's very accurate. But then I say, you could extend your range by refilling your gas tank and saving more, right? Or you could just deplete your range by driving like a maniac. And like with an EV, if I go into sports mode, my range goes down. Like if I have too much fun, I don't get as much range out of my EV. Every time I slam on the glass, I don't slam on the gas pedal too much, but when I do, it reduces my battery by more than if I'm driving calmly. If I drive from home to the office on the back roads, more range. If I drive on the highway, less range. If I drive to Vermont and I go up all the hills, less range. If I drive in Arizona and it's all flat, more range. Temperature changes impact your range. All of these things impact the battery range. It's the same thing with a retirement plan. And you have to make an educated choice on what you're going to do and plan accordingly. And the problem is that some clients just want to drive around sports mode all the time in Italy. And they did not plan accordingly. They don't have as much a reserve.
Right. Yeah. And this goes back to, if that is your goal, is to drive on sports mode, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you have to plan for it.
You have
to plan for that.
Where are you going to charge?
You do. And there's the 4% rule. Do you know the 4% rule?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So there's this blanket statement that's made where you can pull out 4% of your assets conservatively every single year to the day that you die, and you should be good in retirement. So if you have $1 million, you can pull out, let's just say $40,000 a year, and that should last you, given historical market rates of return and all that kind of other stuff. Do you follow?
Yeah, like at what age are we having $1 million and being able to take
like 4%? If you retired at 65.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
retirement. We're talking
Just
about
retirement.
retirement. I was like, got it.
This is an old rule.
This is an old adage,
Yeah.
which actually a lot of studies have shown that you can, if you go back over the last 20 to 30 years, you could have pulled out way more than that, but we shouldn't encourage that. It is possible, but there is,
Yeah, it's based on historic returns for a 60-40 portfolio. So it's basically like if you have a retiree portfolio, historically, this is what you've got in that portfolio. And if you took this much out along the way, you don't run out of money.
Yeah, like because it's growing by 4%. So it's like not doing anything.
Well, it's growing ideally by more than 4%.
Yeah.
But you have inflation. There's other factors there. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of, so I came across this in my research, Goyton-Klinger rules.
This sounds fun.
It is a theory about retirement planning.
Okay.
That you should use dynamic guardrails when it comes to financial planning versus the 4% rule.
Yeah.
So historically, the rate of withdrawal will actually support more than 4.5 to 5-ish% ranges, depending on markets and risk. But it's the theory that you should say dynamic with your withdrawals and spending when it comes to market performance. I find this to be quite difficult when I wrap my head around this mentally, because I'm the kind of person that if it was me and if I was retired, I would want to know how much money I can spend for the year going into it. And if you're planning a trip, or if you're planning this or whatever it might be, and if the market pulls back, this is why we bucket our clients' investments, which we'll talk about here in a second. I think that would be a really tough way to live if you're constantly up and down with the markets and playing accordingly with that. To me, that would be mentally tough.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you approach it. And I tend to agree with you. But I'm going to ask Tori. Tori, if I told you that at the end of 2025, we'd look back and say, okay, it was a good year, and you get an extra $10,000 to spend next year. And then at the end of 2026, I say, well, this was a bad year, and you can spend $5,000 less in 2027. Or you can always spend the same amount every year. Mm. Which would you rather go with? Having these boom and bust years, or just a consistent income?
Consistent.
Yeah. Because it's reliable, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
I think surprises are usually tough in general.
Yeah.
And I think having a surprise year to the upside is fantastic. But most of our retirees that I've seen, if you were to give them another $20,000 to $30,000, I don't know if that would actually change what they do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe they would go on one more trip. But for the most part, if you've already budgeted 2 or 3 trips a year, you don't necessarily want a 4th or a 5th trip.
Yeah, I don't know. I have some clients that will travel
That
as
will
much as
travel
you
as
want
much as you want. That's fair.
But I think what people used to do with retirement is they would buy bonds and they do this thing called coupon clipping. And whatever the interest rate was that they got from the bond, whatever the deposit that they received on that investment, that's what they spent. And when that bond matured and they bought a different bond, whatever the interest rate on that bond is what they spent. And it wasn't the same. You couldn't guarantee it was the same. And it was different, as Colin brought up in a previous podcast, in the 80s when interest rates were much higher 12%. Than in the 2000s when they were much lower.
Yeah.
Right? Or the 2010s when they were really low.
Yeah, I mean, you basically went from 12% to zero.
Yeah.
In 25 years.
Yeah. No, most bonds, unless they're really long term, don't pay zero, but you also don't want to get $100 when you could be getting $500.
Right. And when I say zero, I mean...
I know what you mean.
Real rate of return when you factor in inflation. But anyway, so we just touched on bucketing.
Yeah.
And this is, I'd say, probably our biggest way of ensuring that money actually lasts.
Yeah.
Do you want to run through bucketing?
You tell me about it.
Okay.
You came prepared.
I'm going to tell you. Do you know what bucketing is? We talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, Tori's overly familiar with the bucketing now.
Okay, sounds good. Bucketing basically means is that you hedge yourself out for certain years of retirement. So what do I mean by that? If you are spending $50,000 a year, what we would say is, okay, well, we want to take 3 years worth of spending and set it aside no matter what happens in the market. So we take $150,000 and put it in either like a high yield money market account or a very, very conservative portfolio that doesn't have the volatility of the market. So there you go. You have your 3 years worth of spending set aside. Then what we might do is take another 3 years worth of spending and then do a little bit more growth. And when I say a little bit more growth, what I'm saying isn't going from money markets to 100% stocks, saying going from maybe money market accounts to money market accounts plus a small sleeve of stocks to give you a little bit more. Then you tier it out so you have more aggressive buckets as they continue on. And then the buckets feed into each other. Once one spends down, you change the risk tolerance of the next one and the next one and so on and so forth. Purpose of that is basically if you had a market recession or a big pullback, you wouldn't have your spending money go down in value. You would be insulated from that because how long is the average recession now?
Well, the average recession now. I think they're all different.
Yeah, but it's like 2-ish years, 3 years maybe.
Yeah, and I think the recession, recession, bear market, I think what we like to refer to is the 2008 financial crisis because that's the worst market crisis that people have had to navigate.
Right.
And if you had a diversified portfolio, the duration of your pain was shorter or lower than if you were all stocks, right? So
100%.
The point here is the risk, right? You said risk tolerance, that's the key word. You have the very lowest risk on the money that you're going to need this year or over the next 3 years. And then further than that, you can take more risk in hopes of a higher return because you don't need that money in that time span. That's really useful, I find, for financial planning purposes. Yep. It doesn't change clients' panic on headline numbers changing because ultimately what you're going to have probably is the largest bucket. The account that has the most risk is going to be the largest account, and that's still going to impact your headline number, your total portfolio,
your rate of return.
Yeah, and in a bad market, if the stock market goes down 20% and your most aggressive or riskiest account is largely stock, you're going to feel that more and see that more, even though we've already set aside the next 4 or 5 years of spending.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that we do that I think is great mentally for people to kind of get over the hurdles of a negative market is actually having different accounts and labeling them appropriately. Yeah. Because if a client can log in and say, oh man, my account's down, we'll call it 14%, we can say, yes, you're right. However, if you look at your next 3 years of spending and even the next 6 years of spending, because we'll look at even the second bucket, label it accordingly, you can still go on your trip. You can still buy that car. You can still gift to your grandkids or whatever it might be. And your actual spending number hasn't gone down. Certainly the growth portfolios over here have, but we're not going to touch them. We're just going to let them recover.
Yep.
But to have that where you can log in and say, oh, good, all my spending money is still there, that helps so many people mentally.
Yeah, I think you have to have the faith, though, that last bucket is going to recover. And,
you do.
In the meeting I had yesterday, they were losing the faith. They were feeling like, things are going to go so bad over the next 3 years that we'll never recover. And when I asked them, what does that look like? Like, I understand the concern. I feel that concern. I validate that concern. What does it look like to you 4 years from now, 5 years from now? How has the economy changed? How has money changed? Like, what does that actually look like? And they don't know because it's almost unimaginable to them because the system that we all rely on is such a just massive part of our life.
It's so contingent on it.
Yeah. The fear is very shallow. Like it comes from a very strong place, but it's not very deep in its thinking. It's mostly, first or second derivative thinking because fear is instinct. It's basically just meant to protect you from the unknown or from something that could happen to you. It's not chess. There's no fear in chess.
No.
So I think that's really tough. There are a lot of people who are concerned that the system is going to fail them, whether it's Social Security or the stock market or the country or whatever it is. And that very well could happen. But if you can't picture what that looks like, then you also don't know really how to protect yourself from it. And if your solution is to go into cash and you're worried about the country failing, well, cash isn't going to do anything for you.
No, it's a guaranteed loss because inflation is almost always higher than what you're going to get in a checking account.
Right.
Yeah.
So
on that front, I have clients that say the exact same thing. And it's interesting because the way that I kind of frame it and the way that I personally think about it is what you're saying by the market going to zero or things crashing and the world economy being so bad where you can't recover from it, whatever it might be. We're buying companies is what we're doing. Stocks is ownership in a company. So what you're basically saying is that, iPhone sales have gone down dramatically. People are no longer buying from Amazon. What you're also saying is that defense companies, war is no longer a thing, right? Because that's how they make their money. What you're also saying is that people aren't going to the hospital anymore and using drugs anymore because drug companies aren't making any money anymore. People aren't using their insurance anymore. The odds of the market going to zero, I don't want to say are zero because a natural disaster can happen and the world could blow up. But that would mean that money is the least of your concerns.
That's always the fallback. But I think it is such a big concern most of the time that it's really hard to imagine it not being. And I think what's interesting is when we talk about bucketing, it all comes back to budgeting. It comes back to understanding what you said earlier about how much money you spend and whether you're secretly eating or secretly spending. I had a client, we were doing some estate planning and she grew up very, very poor. I may have spoken about this in another podcast, but she, had millions of dollars and was worried about being able to pay for bread. When I asked her how much their monthly spending was, she threw out like a pretty low number. And her husband was like, no, it's way more than that. And she had this fear, but she hadn't done anything to address it. She was worried about going back to a bread line, but she doesn't really know how much money they spend or really how much money they have. And that probably compounds that fear. It probably makes her feel way worse. And it's very typical of that type of dynamic where you often see that men are in control of the money and their wives are like kind of left out. And then what happens is the man dies and the wife is like, wait a minute, I'm paying attention to this now. And then they work with an advisor who sucked and they find a new advisor.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting how fear can control you and almost, I don't know if it maybe prevented her from like looking to see how this might actually mathematically work out for her.
Yeah, I know. It's fear can be blinding in these situations, and there's a lot of media and news that sells on fear. It's really actually impossible to escape it at this day and age. But you almost to a certain extent have to trust and rely that the system will be there in 30, 40, 50 years. Because if you're so conservative where it's just going to cash, you're going to really be in a tough spot down the line.
Yeah. But what if you don't have fear? Like going back to, the client we've been speaking about a little bit this week, she is pacing to run out of money.
Definitely.
But she doesn't seem fearful of that.
I don't know. Maybe money's not her concern.
Well, that's the thing, right? How much fear is healthy? How much fear is, I have another client who's, maybe 45 and is tracking to run out of money and is not adjusting his lifestyle at all. And he's got a lot of time to adjust it. He's never going to. I would be shocked if he did.
Well, do you remember when we looked at that one case and the client was making $9 million a year? Remember when we were down in Florida?
Yeah.
And they were going to run out of money because
Yeah.
they were just flying private and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And some people just genuinely don't think about it.
Or maybe they don't care about it, right? Like going back to
Yeah.
Seth Rogen, if he's like waking up and realizing, I could have gone to Paris and instead I didn't, or I could have flown private, or I could have done this, or I could have done that, but I didn't because I was fearful. I think you have to be able to address the fear, and then that maybe helps you have a more empowered or educated decision.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Compound Growth. Today we explored what it really means to set and achieve goals and the reality of what comes next, especially when it comes to retirement. Everyone's lifestyle, needs, and spending habits are different, and that's why it's so important to stay realistic, flexible, and prepared. Our goal is always to help you plan for a retirement where you don't run out of money, but just as important, to be there with you to adapt, react, and problem solve when life changes. We hope this conversation gave you some perspective on how to think beyond the finish line and into the life you want to live. Thanks for listening, and again, we'll see you next time on The Compound Growth.
Compound Growth with Wheeler and Colin. Sponsored by Ko-Fi Advisors. Reach out today. Yay!